everybody. Welcome back to Pagan's Witchy Corner. My name is Pagan, and I am joined by some friends you guys already know, and that is Eric and Laova of the Spirit World Center. If you guys are fans of the show and have been listening for a while, you've probably caught their previous episode where we talked about all sorts of really amazing things. If you haven't caught the episode and you are new, feel free to go ahead and pause this one and go back and listen to that one, because this is kind of a part 2 continuation topic kind of thing. So we're going to talk about some really cool stuff, but Eric and Laova, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you so much for having us here. It's a pleasure to be back.
Yes, thank you so much.
Well, we love talking with you guys. And also, if you have listened to the sister show, Chaos and Shadow, they were also over there. They talked about shamanism. They've talked about all sorts of cool stuff. They led us in a nice shamanistic trance journey, which was awesome as well. So they are good friends of the network. So today we are going to talk about spirits of place and some of our interactions with paranormal, fae-like entities. And from everything we were talking about before we started recording, you guys have some pretty cool stories. So why don't you guys tell me a little bit about your place? Because I know when I was on your show, I talked about mine, and I'd love to hear all about your land and everything you guys have kind of started to encounter there.
Absolutely. Well, it's great to be talking about this on your show now. As your listeners might know, actually the podcast hasn't been posted yet, but you came on our podcast recently and talked about how you in particular work with the spirits of the land in your area, and it was probably one of my favorite interviews that I've done with a guest. And yeah, I'm really happy to talk about what we do ourselves. So we live out in the countryside. It's basically north of Kingston, Ontario, and so it's cottage country. It's north of the Thousand Islands, and it's an area that has a lot of lakes, and within maybe 10 minutes driving, there's like probably 10 different lakes, and many more stretching out from there. And it's interesting landscape, right? It's a lot of big stony outcrops, and you'll find even in the landscape around here, there's some farmers fields to the south where there's a lot of crops and such growing, but a lot of the area is just good for pasture land for cattle, because you'll have cattle grazing along all these huge boulder fields. Like, I'm talking massive boulders, boulders maybe 10 feet high, and creating these huge outcrops. So it's really beautiful landscape in that way. And alongside that, there's all this swampland, right? Because it's all
Mm-hmm.
this lot of boulders and a lot of stone, and so the water doesn't have anywhere to go. And this area was actually very sacred to a lot of the Native American tribes, apparently back around well, I'm not an expert on this part, but from what I've read, around at the end of the first millennium, there's
Mm-hmm.
a big ceremonial complex around here. And it's interesting, even within 2 kilometers, maybe 3 kilometers of us, there is an old burial mound that unfortunately the only material that I found on it was that in the 1930s it was reported as being dug into in an excavation, and of course all the remains and artifacts and such were trucked out of there and dumped at another site. So very very disturbed and unbelievably terrible actions done towards the local spiritual ecosystem here. That's for sure. There's a farmhouse now, literally uh, right beside that Indian burial, that Native American burial mound. I can only imagine what type of activity might be going on there. I don't know, but it's a very interesting area. It feels very spiritually charged. Um, and so, of course, we've had a lot of interesting experiences here. And I think one of the first that we encountered was during a channeling session. And Laova, she does a lot of channeling. And during one session, she just started going, me, 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 me.
Yes, that was so unusual. Like you're channeling, usually you have like, I don't know, it's not like that. You have words or you have
Right.
other sounds, but not me, 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 me. I'm like, what is that? What's going on here? It's such an unusual, like you're channeling and all you go is me, 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 me. I'm like, okay. It was so odd.
And it really sounded like Beaker from the Muppets,
Yeah, that
It's
was
just
just
this
what
high
I
pitch, me, me,
was
me, me.
visualizing almost.
and it continued for quite a while. And eventually what this channeling session turned into was that a lot of us started drawing on a piece of paper, basically this map of our property, and then drawing these kind of these circuits, these routes through the area. And we got the sense that these were basically these routes that these beings would follow, would walk and
Mhm.
travel. And eventually what we started getting out of that channeling exercise, and this is common with a lot of the channeling we do, where it can start off the the signal coming through very strangely, let's say, and
Mhm.
not very communicatively, but at the same time, there being a signal. And then it's almost like, the beings on the other side are able to access your vocabulary to a greater degree. And so eventually we started to get some details from these beings. And what we started getting was that these were fairy-like entities that lived in the in our property, and that they lived on this big hill, this big ridge uh, in the back that's comprised of
Mhm.
all boulders. And essentially, you have this big ridge, this big longitudinal ridge, and then behind that is this very large ravine with a cliff face and all this. And then there's another big ridge, maybe 50 feet tall, 40 feet tall behind that. And so we got the sense that these beings lived in those ridges. They lived in the boulders. This was the kind of the prime information that we were getting from them, right? That they lived in the boulders. And so that was pretty much, the information we got. And then they would travel through the property, and that they were basically fey-like. Okay, so those are the main information
Mhm.
points that we came away from the session with. So not much else happens after that for a while. And about a month later, we've come to start calling these beings mimes, because
Right.
it's kind of like, well, this is how they communicated, right? This is literally the only thing that they were saying at the beginning. Me, 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 me. And so I'm like, okay, what do we know about these things? Well, we know that they're fairy-like. We know that they uh, interact with the nature, and we know that they live in the boulders. Okay, is there anything out there in all the lexicons of fairies and all the dictionaries of spirits and stuff and encyclopedias? Is there anything out there that's similar? Well, I just type into Google Mimi and fairy, and instantly it takes me to Wikipedia, which I was like, okay, that's fast. And turns out that Mimi is basically the Aborigine name for fairy in within
Huh.
a certain area of Australia. And what blew us away there, so first off, the name matches. Secondly, they're fairies. But the thing that really blew us away is that the number one piece of the lore is that these beings live in boulders,
Yeah.
that they live within the cracks in boulders. And so, our jaws were just wide open when we heard that. And it really came to mind that, okay, fine, these must be cousins of the ones down in Australia. But this is there's a reason, obviously, why they're called mimes. It
Mhm.
obviously has something to do with their consciousness and how they interact, how they express themselves. And at the same time, these beings are following the same pattern. They're living in those boulders, and and so we've been working with those beings ever since on the property. It's been quite a lot of fun.
That sounds like it's been quite a lot of fun. And that kind of reminds me of, I don't know if you're familiar with a type of goblin slash fade like entity that's called a Pukwuji, I believe. And I'm probably butchering that because I butcher all things that are not clear English. But the Pukwujis are from the northeastern continental US. But there's
Absolutely.
also parts of it that they have found in other countries like Europe and stuff like that that match the lore. And it's like, huh, did y'all just like come over on the Mayflower? Like, did you just hitch a ride and decide to come over? How did this work? And that's what kind of came to mind with your memes. It's like, how did you guys end up there if you were all the way over here?
Yeah.
I like it. I
Exactly.
like it a lot, though. It's one of those mysteries of other beings. It's like, if you're over here, how did you get over here? Like, is there a pathway? Like, do we not know this? Is time travel a thing? I love it
Well,
though. It's so awesome.
yeah, one of the thing I think it could be, it's a theory there, but is that, let's say the boat is made of the wood from where they come from, and I
Mm-hmm.
think they can, as they, maybe their consciousness is attached to a certain part of the land, but if they are, they were living in the trees or living in the material that I've made, traveling tools that we have, they could have been carried here.
Mm-hmm.
That would be
Yeah.
my theory there.
I
But
think that's still
yeah.
really cool though to see how other cultures and other places have similar lore and similar things, and
Oh yeah.
yet somehow the same beings are in two different places at the same time. And I think that's super cool, super awesome.
It
It
is
makes
one
me
of those.
giddy.
Yeah.
It is one of those very interesting questions, right? Were they here before? Do they just take the form that our consciousness might expect? Did they come with us? I mean, here in Canada, we have all the settlers from the UK and from who arrived in the Newfoundland area and like the
Hmm.
east coast of Canada. And the east coast of Canada, places like Newfoundland, New Brunswick, Prince Edward Island, they have a very, very rich fairy folklore as well, like almost as strong as back in Ireland, right? So
Hmm.
it's very strong there. So these things, they definitely move with us. I think they're also there. I think they can be very malleable. They can take the form that we expect. They can also take new forms. It's quite amazing, and yeah, the Pukwudgie legend, we are where we are, we're basically southeastern Ontario, so we're right across the border from New York. So
Hmm.
just entering into that northeast United States area where the Pukwudgie legend is still strong. Yeah.
That's super awesome. So we have the memes that are on your property. But you had also mentioned some other fun kind of things that you have done, some that kind of helped with interesting landscaping, I believe is what you said.
Yes, yes. Well, we arrive on this property, and we know that these beings live and exist within the landscape, especially within the boulders, right?
Hmm.
And so a natural thing that emerged from that was, okay, we've got to build a stone circle, right? And it's a great way to interact with the local energies, the local entities, in a way that is creative. It's giving something to them, right? One thing that we found, especially working with the Fae, is that they love things that are creative, right? They love it when you add to the landscape, that kind of that human creativity that only we are capable of, right? That building. And so we started gathering big stones from all around the area.
Hmm.
Yeah, that was quite the process. We find a spot in the forest, not too far from the house, and then I clear up all the ground for it. We cut like a little dead trees that were there, and then so we have space for the circle, and then we went in the woods close to the boulder field where we know the Mimi were living, and we asked permission for the rocks. We're living offering, and most of the big rock was Eric carrying them. It was quite he sweat. It was quite the exercise.
These were pretty good, pretty big boulders. I'd say
yeah.
some of them were tipping into the 80-pound, 100-pound.
Some you had to roll.
Some I actually literally had to roll, and use levers and stuff. And the number one thing when you're doing something like this is ask permission. Ask permission for every single stone.
Absolutely.
Something we found was, especially we have the ring of all these, smaller stones. And when I say smaller stones, they're still pretty big, right? They're the size of like 2 or 3 basketballs all together. Wow. And this is basically the ring around the edge. And then we have these big stones at the, at the cardinal directions. Yeah. And then also one really big kind of phallic stone in the center, but it's like, this center point where all the energy is focused, right? Mm-hmm. And what we found, especially in finding those big stones, was that often they'd say, no, you can't have this one, and it's so easy to ask permission. I really suggest this to anyone who's going out into nature. It's one of those things where, especially when you're a pagan or a witch or anyone who likes nature, you're going to be walking through the woods and it's like, oh, I like that stick, oh, I like that pine cone, I like that rock. And it's so easy to just pick it up and take it, right, without recognizing that it is a part of the spiritual ecosystem of that place. So you really should ask for permission and even give something back in exchange. And it's such an easy thing to just kind of kneel down beside the object, put your hand on it, and just ask, spirits of this place, can I take this object? And I find one of the easiest ways to get that intuitive response is just see what arises in your mind after you ask the question. If positive thoughts or ideas or images come to mind, it's very much kind of that positive yes. But if you get things that are negative, right, negative in any way, negative thoughts, negative images, then, it's a no. And just kind of, respectfully say, okay, you keep that. Okay, no problem. And so we performed that for all the rocks. And eventually we got some really amazing stuff that felt very, very empowered, very, very powerful. And it took us a while to get everything into place, but it has become quite the ritual center. Mm-hmm. And we now have five altars?
Four. We have 4 altars. We have one for our ancestors, one for a specific set of spirit we work with, one for the spirits of the land, and another one for other like spirit guides that we have as well.
Pretty much all the miscellaneous spirits we have in our life that aren't captured by the other altars. And these are, big slabs of stone, maybe mm-hmm. 2.5 feet wide on top of other stones, forming a kind of a pillar shape. And it's really a wonderful place to work. And anyone who's listening, you don't have to have this massive stone circle in your backyard to connect with the spirits of the land, right? And the one thing I know is that you can even just take a little stone and turn it into your altar, right? Mm-hmm. You don't need to go, but if you can make something big, there is an amazing amount of energy that starts to cycle through that place. It's like an energy vortex, and it can be incredibly powerful. And I gotta say, when I go out there at 2:00 in the morning, you definitely do not feel alone. That's for sure.
Oh, that must be such a wild experience. Oh, that's so cool. That like I'm sitting here just listening and I'm just like, oh, that looks like it or sounds like that would be so amazing. I want to go. I love that kind of thing. That's an incredible experience. And I bet so with this stone circle that you guys have built with all of these altars, do you find that it attracts other entities to it?
Yes. In fact, I'm going to pass the mic over to Laova here because absolutely our ceremonial practices at this site definitely attract things that sometimes we have no idea what it is, but it's very interesting and foreign. And yeah, go ahead, Lava.
Yeah, no, I love this circle, and not long after we built it, it was a full moon, and I think it was the first full moon after the building of the circle, and uh, I just, it was during the middle of the night, and I just went, for the midnight pee.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have other words to say. Um, and in the moonlight, in the house, there was something I never seen before, which was just tons of giant cocoon, like human-sized cocoon, um, all over the place in my living room and in the kitchen. And I was like, I just had a flash.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, who are you? And I could feel their energy, and they were just kind of soaking in the moonlight. And then I'm like, okay, I just, kind of quietly do my thing and go back. I didn't know what to do with them.
Well,
And
you woke me up and you were like, there's something in the living room. I get up and I'm like, am I actually going to see something here? And of course I don't see anything, right? This is already, happening within Lauva's psychic sense, but, her third eye, but, I didn't see anything, but it definitely felt a little weird.
I never seen them again. I was just like, will I see them again? They will be butterfly. But talking of butterfly, there's another type of fairies that we encounter, but more in dream. And that's something that happened to Eric and I, that sometimes we dream together.
Mm-hmm.
And so uh, these we call them the brown mud night fairies. And it's just like, they're kind of, yeah, they're brown mud night fairies. I don't know how to describe otherwise, but they come into dreams, and sometimes Eric and I were just kind of in trance and we dream together.
Yeah, it's one of those things where we'll wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning and like be half, like completely entranced, both of us, and kind of aware, kind of in that in between sleep state where usually we both feel like we're taking part in some kind of ritual or ceremony. And at the same time, it's like her experience of it will be different from mine, but we definitely are having that shared trance state, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I imagine that some people who have experienced kind of alien abduction perhaps would kind of know that as kind of that absolutely that tranced out state where reality and other experiences kind of merge together. And
Mm-hmm.
we certainly experience that, but kind of with the local fae, that's
Yeah.
for sure. And one thing that we get from channeling with this particular type of fae, the brown moth night fairies, is that they can definitely act as dream engineers, coming in and kind of, if you invite them, they can work with your subconscious mind while you dream. And so they're very interesting to work with for that reason.
Oh, that's really interesting. So I kind of want to go quickly back to the cocoon people.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I'm like, do I call them fae? Like, I don't know.
I,
We'll just
I
call them
call,
Good
cocoon people, I
question.
guess.
yeah.
Yeah.
um, was there multiples or was it just a singular entity?
Oh, there were multiples. I would say they were probably like 15. Yeah, I
Wow.
call them the Moonlight Cocoon Tribe because they were all white. They were all tall, like, well, pretty tall, like Eric. So like 6 foot tall,
Mm-hmm.
very like large cocoon. And it felt alive, it really felt like they were sinking in, soaking in the moonlight. It was
That's
so odd.
interesting.
Yeah. I
Wow.
didn't feel their presence after that. Never seen them again. Was very, very bizarre.
That
Yeah.
is just super cool and super interesting. We have a portal, as we talked about on your show. There's a portal that sits on my land that's a natural one. And we have some very interesting things that will come through. And sometimes kind of like you, I will have experiences of like, I don't know I don't have a name for you. I don't know what you are.
Hmm.
I've never come in contact with you. So That is very interesting, and I'm gonna have to kind of keep a lookout for these beings that you're referring to in the when I'm astrally walking, because I think they would be interesting to experience.
Oh yeah.
That's super cool.
I just felt like I could not disturb them.
Mm-hmm.
It felt like they were into their own trance there.
Mm-hmm.
It was so special. I felt like if I would be interacting with them, it would be impolite and like they
Right.
were doing their own thing. And I just said, okay, you know what? Just be my guest and enjoy the moonlight in the house. Yeah.
That's so
I think
awesome.
I think that's one thing that we've realized interacting with so many types of beings is that just because something is in your house doesn't mean that they're there to interact with you.
Mm-hmm.
That for a lot of the spirits around here, spirits of the land, our house is like a big boulder, and it's part of the natural landscape. They fleet in and out of it. You know, it's not like they see any divide between us and between our living area
Mm-hmm.
and the land, right? And really, we don't create one, right? We
It's
don't say, oh, everything has to stay out, which I mean, you can, but we haven't done that.
you can see a house like a complex bird nest, you know,
Mm-hmm.
we're just like very good at it. So it's
Yes.
a but this is how the spirits of the land they see the house. It's just a complex bird nest or boulder. It's
And
just the land.
it's very interesting to kind of think about, especially when you do spirit work and psychopomp work and all this other stuff, that there's a large portion of different timelines, realities, worlds that kind of overlap with ours. And we all just generalize and call it the spirit world or the astral world. But ultimately, there's so many different fragments of that we can't really fathom as human beings because we don't have the consciousness to really fathom
Mhm.
it.
Mhm.
And I think that there are times that even in my house, I will come in contact with things that I'm like, I don't know if you're supposed to be in here. But it's almost like they don't realize that they're there. They're just there doing their own thing, like yours were doing. And it's kind of, I think that it would be similar to if we walked into something else's house and they were making dinner or whatever, and they would turn around and be like, who are you, why are you in my house? And you wouldn't even realize that you were there. So I think that Eric, kind of what you were saying is a really solid point, that as witches and practitioners, any kind of entity that comes into your home or into your space may not be there to necessarily hurt you. They might just be overlapping in the moment.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. And then, of course, they can also be like incredibly curious,
That too,
of
yes.
course, right? Like they, you're doing something and they're like, okay, we want to check out what you are doing. I mean, just last week or maybe 2 weeks ago, Laova was doing some art in her room, and I was, in the living room on the couch, and she opens the door and she was like, were you just jiggling my doorknob? And I'm like, no, no, I wasn't. And it's like, sometimes those kind of experiences happen. It's like, well, what was that? You really have no idea how to.
Yeah.
There really is no way to ascertain who or what was doing it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But something was interested maybe in what you were doing.
Or they just show you they're not too far. Like what, like I remember we were talking about the Mimi, and the light flick, the light switch turned off, and it's impossible, right, to turn off. It's the rolling thingy.
Oh, I forgot about that one.
Yeah, no, I was marked by this one.
Yes. Oh, wow. I completely forgot about that one. Yeah.
The rolling
so,
thingy.
Yeah, we were doing a channeling session.
Yeah.
And it was after a channeling session, and we were talking about the Mimis and the spirits of the land.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as I said spirits of the land, I was right beside this old, I guess it's kind of like a spotlight lamp
that you clip.
that had this real sticky, I guess you had to twist it, right? Yeah,
It's a roller, they light that
yes,
instead of flicking up or down, you
Mhm.
kind of have to roll the
you have
wheel.
to roll the switch.
You had to roll the switch, and so it had a really clear kind of switch on and switch off, and you'd have to move the wheel quite a bit to get it on to activate the spring. And yeah, so we mentioned spirits of the land, and then this light that's literally 2 feet away from my head just switches on, and it was it was pretty clear. It was like, okay, I guess they're here with us. And I must have spent like 20 minutes after trying to put that switch in like an intermediate position or something to see if it would switch on by itself.
Yeah.
And nope. No, it would not. It would not. Yeah, they can definitely interact and say that they're there, and that's kind of their trickster's quality, right? Where it's
Yeah.
like, well, I'm here, I'm not going to tell you anything else or interact in any further way, but I'll definitely tell you that I'm here.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the funny thing about interacting with these kind of entities, right? They can be just curious.
Mm.
They can just be passing through for their own reasons. They can be tricksterish. Then I find also, there's spirits of the land that are they're kind of rabid. Well, maybe not rabid, but they're more like
They're primal.
yeah, they're like a raccoon that is going through your trash. And
Yeah.
they are inquisitive, and they are taking, maybe little bits of energy that you've discarded, or they are just coming in for their own reasons. They have nothing against you, right? They're not aggressive in any way, but I have a feeling if you corner them, they could become aggressive. It's exactly like a raccoon that's going through your stuff, your trash, and your recycling, right?
Yep.
I wouldn't go try and pet it, but it's very nice to
Yeah.
have around. So there's really all kinds of beings that you run into when
Yeah.
you start to work with the spiritual ecosystem around you. And of course, the easiest way to create that relationship that we have found is to start giving offerings, right? And these are like little gifts, right? And we give these at the Stone Circle, and just a little offering of bread once a week or so. It really can be quite an amazing thing to do. It's just giving that spiritual energy, right? The life force energy, but also the love and the respect that you're exuding when you're giving this energy. They're picking up on that, and they are benefiting from it. And I find that it improves their ability to interact with the world. And if you start giving that gift, they will start to like you, right? And they'll take an interest in you. And we sometimes call it an offering, but it's not really, it's not like you're worshiping them, right? It's not like you're bowing down before them. It's more like giving a gift, right? It's the symbiosis where I'm giving to you, and that's like, okay, hey, this person's pretty cool. They're just giving this to me. Okay, well, I'm going to help this person out, and then, hey, we have this exchange going on. This is great. Of course, if anyone starts this kind of symbiotic exchange with the spirits of the land, the one thing I would advise is keep it up unless you until such point as you go to them and say, look, for this reason I can't do this anymore, and if you do that respectfully, that's okay, but if you purposefully stop doing it, or even if you forget, if you forget a week, they will remind you. Because and not with malice, but it's more like if they're an excited 2-year-old that like keeps getting candy from you, right? And then you forget to give the 2-year-old candy, and they're gonna either throw a tantrum or be like, I want the candy, I want, they're gonna be
they're gonna tell you.
They might get mischievous, they might hide your car keys, they might do apports, so these things happen. Definitely, yes. And if you create that kind of relationship with them, definitely remember to keep it up.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you're kind of talking about this, and two images popped into my mind as you were saying this. Think of it a little bit like you've just moved to a new neighborhood and you're wanting to get to know your neighbors, so you bring them cookies. But the interesting thing is there's a child there that really likes cookies and now has gotten the taste of your cookies, and will show up at your house once a week and be like, hi, do you have any cookies? And you give them a cookie, except for 1 week you forget to give them a cookie, so they steal your cookie jar.
Yeah,
and you have
pretty
to
much.
That is the equivalency of giving a gift to a fae-like entity in my mind.
Oh,
And it's not
totally.
a bad thing.
No.
No, it's not with malice. It's
No.
coming from exuberance. It's coming from excitement about the relationship that you
Yeah.
have with them, right? They're reminding you of a commitment that you
Yeah.
have with them. It's because they like you, you know.
Mhm.
That's why they trick you and play with your mind, you know, because they like you.
That is correct. And the other
Yeah.
thing too is you can always go into the kind of gift giving. This is what I do with mine, my spirits, because I will forget, and I will totally forget like for months that I am supposed to do this. So when I give them a gift, I'm like, hi, I have some extras. I thought you would like some. I don't know if I'll be back to give this to you anytime soon. So I hope you enjoy. And it's not
Yeah.
necessarily just like, I don't care about you. It's the fact that I will forget because I'm
Yeah.
human and I have so much other stuff going on and all that. So I tell them straight up, I will forget to basically feed you guys. So here's a gift for now, and I'll see you when I see you. I hope
I
you're all
Yeah.
well.
love I
That's
love
good.
that you bring that up because that's absolutely something that we teach our students as well, which is, you know, you can create this cyclical exchange, right?
Hmm.
Hmm.
But then also you can give one-offs, right?
Hmm.
And the kind of this one-off gift. And they understand, you know, if you have that intention when you give that gift, they
Yeah.
understand, okay, this is a one-off gift. I'm just going to enjoy it. I'm not going to expect it again, again, again.
Uh,
And yeah, if you're just starting out with working with the Fae and spirits of the land, that's always good as well to see
Hmm.
what's going to happen.
Ultimately, it's like with any relationship, you just want clear expectation.
Yes.
You set things clear, and so there's no misunderstanding or expectation that are not supposed to be there. So same with
Hmm.
the spirits. Yeah.
So I have one question about some of the spirits that you guys have already brought up, and I know that there's a few others that you've worked with as well. But my question is, do you guys have any entities and any spirits that you have started to, even if it's the mimes or other fae-like beings that you have kind of gotten a relationship with, that you can say, hey, I'm going to come to you because I'd like to do X magical practice or X magical working, for whatever reason. Could you come be of assistance for this?
I think Laova can talk deeper on this one, but I would say the brown moth night fairies. And you know, I just want to point out one thing before we get into this, right?
Uh-huh.
Is that, you know, we have names for them like the brown moth night fairies or the mimes, right, and everything, right? And I just want to point out that there's so many different iterations that consciousness can take, right? There's so
Yes.
Yeah.
many different types of fae and types of and I just wanted to really express that it's not like these are species that are um, in stone. You know, it's not like these are patterns that consciousness takes and that interact with our world, or and that, you know, repeat themselves, and that. But it's I don't want people to feel, at least in our experience, that these are, let's say, beings that evolved alongside us, or that, you know, we can kind of get very kind of physical in how we think of these beings, as almost biological, right?
Mm-hmm.
That um, and I would say, you know, when we talk about biological, it's like that these are like species that are kind of set in stone. They exist and they change very slowly, right? I would say actually quite on the opposite, that these are patterns that consciousness take that are very fleeting, that are very that can change very quickly, and can take many different forms, right? And so this is why you can have so many different and strange patterns that these kind of fey-like consciousness takes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what we're talking then about is a very particular manifestation of that fey-like consciousness, right? So yeah, brown moth night fairies. The They definitely can be called upon, in our experience, uh, to cause change while you sleep, right?
Yes. Well, I do call on the brown night fairies for um, dream work, where when I want actually to change some part of my consciousness, when it comes for healing or empowerment, when I try to prepare for something and I need kind of extra help to really get there, to get my mind in a certain place, or to let's say I do some healing work during the day that is conscious, but then I want to do the same work on an unconscious level, dream level. So I ask their help, and it's powerful. I have to say, like the morning I wake up and I'm different, and I can just thank them for that. That's for sure. Otherwise, the Mimis, I love them for their creativity. I do a lot of creative work, painting. And when I call them, my work is very different from my regular work. It's more primal. It's not linear. I can, we cannot see here, but I mean, I have a certain line of creation that I do when I call them, that you can see the wilderness in what I do.
You can feel that raccoon fairy type thing.
Oh, you can see the mischievous. They have a grin. My characters have a grin. I do a lot of, it's more like illustration based. And all the animals and being that I do, they have that little grin and these dark eyes. And it's like, they look like they're playful, but you're just not too sure about them at the same time. It's really, when I call them, I say, just draw with me, just guide my hand. I trust you. And the things that go out of this is really different from my other works that I do. So that's an interesting in that way, for sure.
That's very cool. Very, very cool.
Yeah, the characters there the characters there look like they are playful, but they might bite.
They do have very
big teeth.
Yeah, pointy teeth. Yeah.
I love that. That's so awesome. But and that's very true, that there's a lot of spirits that have that kind of raccoon kind of energy, that's like, I might hug you or I might try to rip your face off.
Yeah.
I'll decide in the moment. It's just a really great thing. And it also reminds me of the Golden Girls Dorothy. She's like, yeah, I'm going out for ice cream or to commit a murder. I'll decide on in the car.
Yeah, that's pretty much the vibe you get from the art I do with them.
I love that. That's so great. So yeah, you guys also had that one spirit that you were telling me about that helped do some destruction to your property, but in a necessary way.
Oh, that was so odd. I was in a trance that day. It was just, I don't know what's going on there. I was going to the garage, and as I opened the door of the garage, I felt kind of a shadow going and running beside me fast, kind of almost like a dog. And I thought it was our dog, actually. And
you felt it brush by your knee.
Yeah, pushed by my knee, going beside me on my right side. And I didn't, like, I can't even remember what I was doing in the garage. I came back, and then that was it. Then later in the day.
And what was so strange about that, right? And definitely Laova was in trance, was, we have a dog, but it's definitely not allowed in the garage. And so if it had pushed past you and got into the garage, you would have taken it out of the garage.
But also, it's not like, she would never have done that.
She would have never done that, right?
It's not the dog to do that.
And also, you wouldn't have, felt it push past you and then just left it in the garage after you passed, right?
Yeah, I know. I was such an maybe I just did art. Usually after I do an art session, I'm kind of not super grounded sometimes. So,
you're definitely in that space for sure. And so later, like probably a couple hours later, I go out to the garage because I'm actually looking for a place for a quiet area to record some podcast episodes. My studio wasn't quite working out where I had it. And so I was just investigating some possibilities. So I'm out in the garage and just looking around, and it's quite a large, it's a two-car garage. And I'm on the one side, and I'm just looking around, and all the bikes are in this one corner. And as my gaze moving around the room, um, my eyes fall upon the bikes. And at that instant, one of the tires explodes.
Oh, wow.
And it's a dusty garage. So I see like the shockwave move out from it with all the dust for like 6 feet. Like it was loud, like super loud explosion. And so this bike tire is exploded. And I go back inside and I'm like, you wouldn't believe what just happened. I looked at this tire and it instantly exploded. And of course, Laova then tells me about what she saw going into the garage that morning, right?
Yeah.
And so I put two and two together and I'm like, okay, something is in the house, obviously of a spiritual nature, and it's causing property damage. And so I was annoyed and upset. And so I was like, go get your drum. And so we got our drums and we're, we're cleansing the house, starting in the basement and cleansing all the way to the roof, just pushing out anything that's negative. And I felt, and when we were cleansing in the garage, usually I tell people, when you're cleansing, focus on only sending away that which is negative, right?
Mm-hmm.
Negative energies and negative entities, because otherwise you are getting rid of the good stuff, right? It's like I might have used this, mentioned this before, but it's like your gut bacteria, right?
Yeah.
You can have bad bacteria and you have good bacteria, and your gut bacteria is very good. But if you take penicillin or any kind of antibiotic, you kill all the bacteria, and eventually you're going to have to take a probiotic after you're done the antibiotics that you can have a system that's functioning again. So you never want to push away the good stuff because it's just essential for that spiritual ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in the garage, I was annoyed and upset, and I didn't just say negative. I focused on that entity. I was like, whoever did this, get out of here. I don't want you around. And so we cleansed in that way. Anyways, later that day, we do a channeling session, and I want to get some answers as to what that was.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, what comes out is that what that being that pushed into the garage was kind of a canine spirit of the land. And it had gone into the garage for a very particular reason. I was going on a daily bike ride at the time, and apparently that wheel was getting ready to pop any minute. Like it was old and
Mm-hmm.
needed to be replaced. And so they had been concerned that it was going to pop while I was on it on my daily bike ride. And I could have become very injured because I would have been on the roadway. And so they decided to pop it first. And it had happened when I was out there looking at the tire, right? Very perfect timing to bring my attention to it. And so instantly after that, I felt terrible. I was like, okay, this thing was trying to save me. It was trying to help me. It was, trying to make sure I didn't get run over. And, and so of course, the first thing I do is just like, okay, whoever did that, you're welcome in the house. Please come on back. We took a bunch of our dog's liver treats and we put them out at the circle for this canine spirit of the land.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, you are always welcome in the house. Thank you so much. And this was an experience that taught us to try our best to avoid a reactive mindset,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to the paranormal. That if something weird happens, don't freak out. Try to understand first. Try to get the context. Try to get to figure out what's going on, and then come up with a response. Right? If you respond out of fear, though, you're going to do the wrong thing because something could just be trying to reach out or help you, and you're going to act inappropriately.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I suppose, like it's good to cleanse from negativity and negative entity anytime. And then, but if you focus on that particular entity that did something that you find was not correct, and that's different, right? Because we have this occasion where it was actually trying to help, and so Eric is not injured. yeah, so sometimes we think something is negative, but it's actually positive.
I
Yeah.
think that that's really interesting. And now you guys also have a pet dog or had a pet dog at the time, right?
Yes.
Did this canine spirit ever interact with your dog as far as you knew?
It did not, yeah, with the dog we had at the time, Lacey, she never really she wasn't seeing stuff in the house, at least not that we noticed. She would definitely respond to any kind of spiritual state that Laova was in.
Yeah.
So whenever Laova was channeling, um,
She would go away.
she would she would poke her. I mean, when Lauva's channeling, she's just sitting there writing, or maybe talking in a very regular voice. There's no big change in her demeanor, right? But the dog we had at the time would come to the door, kind of poke its head in the room, and then notice that Lauva's channeling, and then it would just like head down and then just kind of slink backwards out of
Like,
the
nope,
room very
I'm not
slowly,
going there.
slowly backing up, and then just take a few steps, and then okay, she's gone. um
Yeah, this
and,
was so odd.
and it wasn't like I really feel like it was just she was picking up that shift in
Right.
energies, right? It's like, okay, something else is present here,
Yeah.
and I don't get the pure energy of Lauva right now. There's something else here, and I don't know what's going on, so I'm just going to remove myself from the situation.
Yeah.
Definitely that kind of that
Oh, and she
uncertainty
was
factor.
such a polite dog. That's unbelievable. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you're doing a thing. I'm not going to bother you. I'm
Yeah.
going to go elsewhere.
Yeah. Just gonna do my own thing. Bye. That's so funny.
And our current dog, she definitely is not as concerned. She's young, she's a puppy still,
Yeah.
and but she's not as concerned by the channeling. In fact, she kind of is more curious, like, oh, there's a change here. What's going on there? Interesting. Okay. So
Yeah.
but yeah, not so, definitely the beings in this around here don't seem to interact with the dogs as much as actually there was that moment the other day. What was it that we were talking about how relaxed Cinnamon was being, and then she suddenly just went absolutely insane and started running around, and you definitely felt like some fairy energy
Yeah.
had come in. It was like kind of proving us wrong or something. But yeah, not so much. We don't get the whole cat staring off into empty space type of experience.
That's very interesting. And the whole reason I asked is because our dog Bean, um we have some sort of canine spirit. I don't know if it's a spirit of one of the animals that has passed that we owned at one point in time, or if it is something else that just appears to be canine. But it has a canine energy to it, and she will interact with it, and often she tries to give it food out of her bowl.
Interesting.
It's very strange. Like, there's times that I would have to sit down with her to eat because she was abused when we got her. They had starved her, so she got used to me sitting there trying to help her eat. Because otherwise she would eat so fast that she'd make herself sick. And so sometimes I still have to sit with her to eat. And there'll be times that she'll take like a mouthful of food and go drop it where this energy is. Like she's sharing it. And I'm like, what are you doing? And like I can feel it, and I'm like, no. I don't know who you are, and I understand that she's being kind to you, but that's her food. You can't eat that. If you'd like more food, I'll be happy to give you some. And eventually she stopped doing it, but it was after I said that she stopped doing it, and it was very strange the way that happened. But man, it was a weird scenario for a couple of weeks because I'm like, why are you not eating all your food? Why are you depositing part of it over here? But you never touch it. She would never touch it. I'd have to clean it up later. It was very interesting.
What breed is your dog?
She is a pit bull mix.
Interesting.
And pit bulls they get a bad rap, but they are notoriously loving dogs. They will
Yeah, they're
share
very sensitive
everything.
dogs. Yeah.
Yeah, they're wonder. She is the sweetest dog I think I've ever owned. She does not have a mean bone in her body. Her sister that passed in 2020, Coda, was also very sweet, but she was territorial about food, which was very interesting. And so they would have to be separated to eat. But Bean never had a problem. Like, Bean would just back away from her bowl and be like, "Here, you can have it if you're hungry still. I'll just wait. It's fine. Mom will feed me more." Like, it was such a strange. She's not mean at all, and I'm like, this is weird, interesting, but weird. And so yeah, once I started offering this other entity food, she stopped sharing. It was
Wow.
strange.
I really wonder if different dog breeds might differ in their spiritual sensitivities. Because I mean, they differ in other proclivities, right? Like whether they want to retrieve things or whether
Mm-hmm.
they want to point at other animals and
Yes.
such, right? I mean, that's deep in their instincts. So I really wonder if there might be a difference in how they see and perceive as well. I mean, we've had Australian shepherds, and they're very energetic, but maybe
Mm-hmm.
they lose things in the energy.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's remind me also. Sometimes there are things you just can't explain. And um, I have rabbits, so I have like 4 bunnies.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a bunny lady, and they are in my studio. And one morning, I found them running in circle. They were just running in circle, the 4 of them, for no reason. And I was just found that fascinating. They never did that again. Do you remember? Did I say something about something? I just remember them running in circle, but I was
Yeah,
like, what
yeah,
is happening
for
here?
quite, yeah.
Um,
Actually,
there was a reason. I can't remember.
there was another instance not long ago where also we were just closing out a channeling session, and we have snakes as well. We have a number of snakes, and one of them is a Brooks king snake,
Mm-hmm.
and so he's in a rather large enclosure. He's about a 5 foot long snake, and as soon as this channeling session ends, like literally, like the moment that you could say that Lauva's consciousness is back to normal waking consciousness, uh, it is in the corner and it starts to do this thing where it's moving in this circle, like it is creating this Ouroboros, and it's moving really quickly, like it's this loud sound because it's in its little cave,
Like this, like
and
Mm-hmm.
it's just going whoosh, 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 like it's making one rotation every
he
second and
never
a
did
half or
that
so.
before.
He's
Yeah,
never done it before,
and never done it after.
and I just remember that the context of this was just perfect in terms of the channeling session that we just had, and it was like basically creating this Ouroboros of energy spiraling around, so
Because we were talking about Ouroboros and cycles in the
yeah,
channeling.
inside definitely
And
cycles,
Oh
yeah.
so, and then we
wow.
stopped the channeling, and the snakes start to do that. It
But
was like,
yeah, we did talk about Ouroboros in the
yeah, this
channeling.
is why it was mind blowing,
Yes.
Eric. It's because we were talking about Ouroboros.
Yes.
Oh wow. That is
Yeah.
intense.
Yeah.
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 So sometimes they're just things like that. You're like, what's going on in the house? Like, I'm just no, when I saw my bunnies running in circle all together, I'm like, okay, you're doing some kind of bunny ritual there. You're having fun with fairies or something. I'm not gonna interfere there. It's just super cool to see that. And it happened to me before I met Eric, when I used to go meditate on the beach
Mm-hmm.
close to where I lived at the time. It was early in the morning, and I saw 4 not swans, um,
Geese.
Geese, ducks.
Canadian geese, yeah, I think, and they were
Mm-hmm.
all facing each other, and they were all putting their head in the water, and then throwing the water up their back, and they did that for like 10 minutes, when then like kind of going into a circle. It was such a beautiful, they were dancing in the water together, just throwing the water, and then all together they were doing it all at the same time. It was kind of a synchronized dance, you
Mm-hmm.
call
Mhm.
that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that was, I mean, I never seen that before. I was like, that's so beautiful. And so I just know that sometimes you're just lucky enough to see these kind of secret ritual, and that's great.
And
Yeah.
I think that that's a really wise kind of thing to point out, that humans are not the only thing that are spiritual. Animals are too. And, even there's times where my little dog, who is my oldest fur baby, Hershey, whenever I do any sort of magical stuff, she has to come lay by my feet. Has to. She will claw at the door until I open it for her to come in. Otherwise, she will throw a tantrum until I do and interrupt whatever I'm trying to do. But she has to be there. And, I think it's also very interesting too that whatever animals that we come across in nature, that's, I think sometimes we may interrupt or be witness to their own spiritual activity. And it's just amazing that I think sometimes as humans we forget that.
Yes, and I wonder how much of it our ancestors were actually, witnessing the
Hmm.
others, the other animals' ritual, and just, kind of be inspired by them.
Yes, I think that that's very accurate.
Yeah.
Especially with a lot of the some of the indigenous folks that I've worked with in the past, would talk about stuff like that, or talk about observing the rituals, especially of the bears, because there was a lot of bears where I grew up, like to the point that they would come sit outside my bedroom window during the summer and eat off the
Wow.
fruit tree.
Oh my.
uh,
That's close.
yeah, well, I mean, there were black bears, like you could just literally talk to them and they'd leave. But
Yeah.
it's very interesting that they would talk about the rituals with them and the connection between them and us. And we kind of, growing up, that I didn't realize that until I got into high school, and we had this bear that would come down from the mountain every night during the summer, and he would climb over our fence, which was not very tall. It was like maybe 3.5 feet tall. It's just a normal white picket fence from the 50s. And he'd climb over it, and he would sit underneath my parents' peach tree, and he'd gather up all the peaches that had fallen on the ground, and he'd put them in a pile, and he would eat them. And then he would leave a very neat little pile of the pits for us in the morning. And he would never make a mess. Like, he was very kind and he was very respectful. He never damaged the fence. He would, if the dogs would bark at him, he would never growl at them or be mean to them. It was just very like, I'm gonna clean up the mess that's here. You guys can have the stuff in the tree, but I'll clean up the stuff on the ground for you if that's cool. And it was just a really interesting experience. And some of the other people in the neighborhood were like, oh my gosh, it's a bear, that he's going to attack you. He never tried to come in the house. He never tried to do anything. He just wanted to have his own little dinner and call it a night. It was a really
Wow.
interesting experience. And I had a plum tree that was outside my bedroom window, and he would come do the same thing with the plums.
Oh, that's such a sweet story. I love that.
He was a very nice bear.
Mm.
But yeah, I think that there's lots more spirits of the land than are, in the spirit world. I think that our spirits of the land can also be very much accompanied in the animals surrounding us too.
Yes.
Mhm.
And it's one thing that I appreciate is that when you have the chance to have a close encounter with an animal, and you can actually witness some behavior, it takes it away from the actual cliche that you can find in spirit animal guides, for example. So
Yes.
for example, when you think of the bear spirit, you're like, "Roar," and like, I'm the protector. You don't see a delicate bear super like, I'm gonna just take care of the pear here and the plum, and I'm gonna make a cute little pile and so on. No, you're thinking, I'm the territorial grizzly here,
Yes.
watch out. And so that's just, I love that. And to put it at the quite the opposite of it, as I'm having bunnies, and I was talking about it with Eric, is
Mhm.
that they are not as fearful as you think they would be,
Hmm.
and they also can be quite territorial and quite trying to fight for what they want.
Yes.
So that's something that when you think of a bunny, you think about like, oh, it's cute, it's delicate, it's fast, it's bouncy and joyful. But no, they have their own. They can be something, when it comes to territorial and so on. So um, I do appreciate it when we see, like, even with the snakes, it's been a year now that we have snakes and we rescue snakes, and
they're incredibly sweet. Like, they
I
don't want to bite you at all, even though that's the common
yeah
misnomer, right? They just want to be safe, they want to be warm, and they want to be fed. And if they bite you, it's because you smelled like something that they want to eat.
yeah,
Yes.
pretty much.
Which is only rodents. So as long as you don't smell like a rodent, you're safe.
Yeah.
I think that is amazing. Well, guys, we are at the top of the hour. So this has been a delightful and wonderful and enlightening conversation, as always. And, you know, just for our new people who have not gotten to listen to any of the stuff that you've done with us before, can you tell them where they can find you?
Certainly. Well, you can find us at the spiritworldcenter.com. That's just spiritworldcenter.com. We, of course, are from the Spirit World Center, where we teach online courses on shamanism and mediumship and other ways of interacting with the spirit world. We also have a YouTube channel. Obviously, that's the Spirit World Center on YouTube. We have an Instagram. That's spirit_world_center. And I think we also have a Twitter account, and that's also
And we have the
Spirit World Center.
podcast.
So if you, oh yes, we also have the Spirit World Center podcast. So if you just go into Google and you type the Spirit World Center, you will find us. You will find all of our podcasts and everything in our website. There, of course, is also the Spirit World in somewhere in the U.S., and that is a giant liquor store. That you will find that as well. But we are not them. We are the
we are not the liquor store.
We are the spiritual/shamanic school that is listed.
Like, if you find something with Eric, Laova, and Spirit World, pretty sure it's us. I don't think there's someone else called like us. And yeah, you should go and listen to the episode with you for the on the podcast. Do you know what's the name?
We already have one episode up with Pagan, and the other one is coming up soon. Yeah, in the first one we talk about your encounters with the Bell Witch. So I mean, that's a really
so
fantastic
cool.
episode. And then in the second one we basically have the inverse of this episode that we just had. So we have you talking about your the spiritual refuge that you provide for spirits of all sorts. So it's a really fantastic interview. So I encourage people to check out the Spirit World Center podcast too.
Yes, and they also have a lot of really amazing guests on there. It's kind of become one of my new favorite podcasts. So be sure to also check that out, everyone, because you guys will not be disappointed. The conversations are fantastic with them. So check all that out. And if you guys don't remember all the stuff they said about where you can find it, there's links in the show description. I do that for you guys so you don't have to go try to figure it out yourselves. But Eric, Laova, this has been absolutely wonderful. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Everybody out there, stay safe, be kind to yourselves, be kind to others, and take care. We'll talk to y'all next time. Bye-bye.
Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.